one of the things that we've kind of, I used to love to do. We do a prayer every night. And now we have this like soft soccer ball that we like to play monkey in the middle before we go to bed. It's the worst time to do that, by the way, but we do it anyway. I do it anyways, and get them all riled up and then yell at them when they don't settle down. And so we. But one of the things we did, especially as they were like learning to read, and now we have a 5-year-old who's going to go into kindergarten, and he loves reading. It's that age. I love reading, and right now it's like identifying some words, but mostly pictures and like context. Like he's doing more than just like, oh, there's a book in front of me. Like he's starting to kind of, and he's seeing his brothers. Some of the things I don't know necessarily how we did this right, or maybe it's just something in the gene pool, but both of our kids love reading. Like my son has shelves of like books and series, and he like and all this stuff, and then now his younger brother has all the Captain Underpants books, and like, come on somebody, Dog Man, and like, but he's already now starting to read some like mini chapter, like bigger chapter books that don't just have pictures in it and stuff, which I love. And I it's really, really cool. But I used to, you were, much better than me, read like stories at bedtime, like all the Dr. Seuss books, like, and we have like kind of a generational family book, called Where the Wild Things Are. Does anybody know that? Okay. So I grew up on that book. Like I could recite it by heart for you right now. Like like I struggle with scripture sometimes, but I could recite page 12 of Where the Wild Things Are sometimes. But and then like I love the truths, like the deep truths that are in like these kids books, even like like nursery rhymes and stuff like that. There's always kind of like a moral like inside of it, and sometimes like it just like I'm a sensitive soul. And I don't cry at like commercials, like when you see like a dog on the side of the street and like, if you just gave $1, I'm like, okay, cool, like I feel, but I don't. It doesn't make. But I read a Dr. Seuss book and I like start tearing up, like the oh, the places you will go. I literally can't read it. Like it's the how it ends of like calling this kid that they're going to move mountains and change worlds. And I'm just like, as I'm reading it, like, again, it's my pastor heart, but my father's heart goes like, yes, like I want you to like move mountains, here's the thing, because I am that way, like it's then sometimes like frustrating whenever there is like a nursery rhyme and I'm not sure exactly what like the moral is behind it, and I'm like, okay, so like what was even like the whole point of this? Like, okay, a prime example is Humpty Dumpty. Okay, we all know this, right? Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's. Okay, what is the moral of this story? Like, can anybody like tell me? Like, don't sit on high walls. Like maybe, how about this? Horses are terrible at repairing things. Like, I don't know why the horses were there. It feels like, especially with already broken egg, they just do more of this. Like. I think like one of the ones that we're told a lot is like fragile things are broken, and in this weird way, like there's a whole like history behind this that has, like, by the way, Humpty is not an egg, but we've turned it into an egg, right? Like it's the. Yeah, isn't it crazy? Do you know the history of it? Like, it's a cannon that fell off of like a Scottish castle. That's all it was, and it was just about how a cannon won't go back together again. Like that. Also, still not a moral. Like just like cannons break. Like that's kind of the and apparently cannons are fragile. And so let's pray. No, I was kidding. Like today, I actually really want to like kind of start here, and we're in this mental health series talking about Like, how are we managing the world that's around us? Like, and meaning you can't control anyone else or anything else but you. And now what do you do when you start feeling the maybe you have past traumas that come up in different scenarios, and maybe, similar to like our story where we've had miscarriages and car crashes, we've had loss of parents and grandparents and friends, and we've moved, we face, so like some things like you don't even realize they're going to pop up, and then and it just kind of like ruins your day, and then that day turns into a week, and that week turns into a month, and then after that month it just feels like a lifetime, right? And you're like, man, I just want to be over this, but I still have to go drive, I still have to go hang out with family, and those reminders pop up. But then there's just like the everyday, man, you just experience just a tough world around you, and you realize like how out of control you are. And like here's the jumping off point in looking at Humpty Dumpty. I actually want to like use some eggs today. You guys with me? Like, okay, here I need some feedback, okay? Because I got to know if I should spend the time working on props or not. But we're what was that? Yeah, well, that's the. Oh, okay, nice. So the. I am. We're gonna make Humpty an egg, okay? Like, and this is Humpty, and Humpty's you, by the way, just for you also to overly mix this metaphor. But here's a lot of like what we, I think, can feel like. If you guys don't know, an egg is mainly two parts, right? It's the shell and the yolk that's inside. Like if you, very, very simple. Has anybody, how to like separate the white from the yellow? So let me show you real quick. So if you keep your two sides and you can pass them back and forth, what's really cool is you can actually use the shell because it's designed not to stick to the egg, where your finger is like a repellent. And now you got like a nice little like yolk in there, and it's not broken, and you can use that for like baking and all that stuff. But like here, let's like use this analogy of like looking at this. You got this like outer self, and I'm gonna call this like our presenting self, right? Today, like even if dwell is like a very comfortable, like safe place for you to like let your guard down, and there's still kind of a presenting self. Like if anything, this isn't bad, by the way. This isn't. Sometimes we've looked at this and we've like overly analyzed it. The clothes you pick to wear today presents you, like, and so if you're just like, by the way, come as you are. I literally like I like trying to dress up a little bit, but like if I wore sweatpants, hopefully that wouldn't be your deterrent from like coming to church, because if you wore sweatpants, it wouldn't be my deterrent from being your friend, or like I'm gonna be like, oh, are you doing okay? Like it's like, actually, because I'm in sweatpants, I'm doing great. like there's the. So it's the part of us that like people are gonna like immediately see, and so but there is sometimes a mental health aspect to this, which is like you do present a part of yourself so that people don't. Well, maybe there's a shame part of it, or there's like a part that I don't like about myself, so I hide it. But also the like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the term masking before, right? And so you put up this like, I don't want to call it a persona necessarily, but it's just like, especially there's, if you grew up in a home that had like your mom needed something from you and your dad needed something from you, and they kind of felt different. You became, and especially then if you're like the older sibling, you play this like middle politician between the household, that you kind of get a sense that mom and dad are married together because you're there, and so you don't. Okay, nobody here, just me. You guys are all younger siblings. Okay, I don't like you now because I was the older one. I felt the burden of that sometimes. And then go like, okay, well, dad needs me to be a good student, but mom needs me to like cuddle and all this stuff. And because mom never really validated my educational career and my dad never really showed me affection, there wasn't a balance. Like it was okay that my mom wanted to be my mom and be affectionate in that way, but there's also a partnership and knowing that there's a big unifying goal within our family, which is that I become a well-rounded person to go out in the world. But so then I just became different things. And then so you go into friend groups, you go into high school, you go into all these things, and you create this presenting self. You guys with me so far? Okay, so that's the shell. Like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. There's a lot of analysis that you can do with that, but it really starts not with looking at the shell, it's looking at the yolk inside, okay? And the yolk inside, like we pulled out the whites in it, but we got the yellow that's in here. Yeah, you're amazing, by the way. Thank you so much. Natalie thinks of things way ahead of time. Get yourself a spouse, a friend, whoever it is that does that. But the inside, right, is this like there's nothing that protects it. It's this amorphous blob, right? Anybody kind of feel that like inside where it's just like, all right, whatever is happening in here, if you shift the weight a little too far over, we're here. And if you flip me upside down, and if you shake me too hard, like you're gonna scramble me. Like anybody? Okay, cool. Like that's the part of us that really is the mental health like situation that we're in, like the trial and the issue that's in front of us. Oh, thank you again. And so here's one of the things that we learn to do is then overly work on the outside because it's a presenting thing instead of doing the work inside, so that becomes something that isn't so unstable. And what I'm seeing, and everybody has a form of this, but some of us have a little bit more than others, depending on how your brain is bent or your previous experience in life. But we move then into this. If I can make this outer shell of who I am perfect, then everything will be okay on the inside, even if it feels a little amorphous. So then we look at it and we use perfection as protection in that way, right? And so what the shell was supposed to do was keep it safe for a time, but not make the egg useless. Yeah. Right? And so I need you guys to kind of like roll with me, because the energy that we're putting into this is causing like a major problem. Because here's what happens is whenever it's like putting an egg in a freezer. In order to help that, you create this stronger inner layer that can't be broken. Have you guys ever put an egg in a freezer? You shouldn't. That'd be a dumb thing to do. Want to know why? Because it cracks. Like it's still, because what's inside still needs to expand in order to do the thing you're trying to do to protect it. And so then it goes, and you create this like hard inner shell. So now you're still broken. You're still being cracked open in life, but now whenever there is an opportunity to look at the thing that's cracked inside of you, you're too hard. Okay, so we've now gone, okay, I'm so protected. I'm so like that I don't even have the substance inside of me that would make me the person I'm supposed to be. It's like worse than the hard-boiled egg here. But I don't know if you guys have done this. This is really gross. But it's this feeling of all these things peeling and gross. By the way, if you just have an egg and you want to do this is kind of like a fun little, like, I don't know, gross toy that's in this. Anybody? Let's see if that picks up on the camera. And this is like, I'm finding that when we face like some of like the hard trials in life, and you have leaned into this like perfectionist, again, you're amazing. This perfectionist, like she even knew to have two, and we lean into this perfectionist thing. When life inevitably cracks us, what is exposed, right? And I see with again, we all have some version of a little bit of this perfectionist thing in us. Even if you like making like excellent things. Okay, perfection isn't excellence, but like when you make something excellent, it does kind of feel perfect. It feels like the stars align a little bit. Like have you had that at the end of a hard day, but the whole day you were doing things you love? And it just felt like everything was like lined up. Like, by the way, no wonder you would look to the heavens and just try to figure out like, what was it, the month I was born in? Was it is it literally the stars? It's just you living the way you're supposed to. That's a great feeling. You don't need to find any other reason behind that. God, what lesson are you trying to teach? This is how I want you to be. That's all. Like that's the whole goal. I'm good with the rest of it. Thank you very much. And so like this, but whenever life inevitably cracks, it comes to this point where we got to look what's inside of us and say, what is showing up? What is happening in here? And so we do everything to avoid the crack. We try to be perfect. We try to freeze. Here's the other thing that I see a lot of people doing in this is don't worry about that. It's kids. They're kids. The other thing that we do is like we compare what another egg. Okay, when you go grocery shopping, do you open the carton and check all the eggs? Okay, cool. Like, right. And you find an egg and you're like, okay, good egg. And then the bad egg is just because you're not like shaking it like a cantaloupe, it's just whether it's cracked or not. And the goal is if you're going to spend your hard-earned dollars on eggs, you want to have eggs to be able to use, right? And so then it's the right thing to do in the example here of like, just make sure you're using the carton. But then I think like just trying to use this a little bit as a metaphor for today is that we find what we think is what a good egg is, and then we start comparing all these other things around what that's supposed to be. And we go, oh, that is what good looks like. That is the thing. Like that person on Instagram, that friend, here I've heard this a ton, which is like, well, the home I grew up in was perfect. Like my mom and dad were amazing. They they had some flaws, but they were just like, and I'm like, really? Like it's okay to like point out that like life was hard, that your parents didn't live up to like what you are hoping they would be all the time, because by the way, that's going to be your experience if you become a parent. And if this becomes, oh, I'm not them, or I'm not that, it just, all you can do is like compare yourself to your own egg, which sometimes just doesn't feel like it's the right thing. And so what I found in this is similar to what Brittany pointed out, is that from one side it looks like it's good, but on the other side it's still broken. Listen, we're all cracked eggs, okay? We all got something, and we want to look then even in the comparison game to Humpty and go, Humpty's climbing walls he shouldn't be. Well, what do you play stupid games, win stupid prizes? Like, come on. Like, we have a little bit of that, especially nowadays when your opinion is so strong on how other people live their lives, And then, I mean, we get this message in the Bible of like, you're looking at the splinter in their eye, but ignoring the log that's in yours. Because it's easier to judge someone else's egg than judge your own. Because the way that you've judged it is, oh, well, I've cleaned on the outside. I've made that look good. In the Bible, we've talked about this many times, but it's worth pointing out in this message that in Matthew chapter 23, we get Jesus talking to the perfect, flawless people at the time. And they're the religious people. They're the pastors. They're the priests. And even in this role, it's called the Pharisees. There's a couple different ones. There's Sadducees and so many other things. Scribes were those who then wrote and kept the law going up. And in this, he's talking to this group of people and looking at them and saying, hey, look at your own egg. Look, and oh, you're not willing to do that. And he's like, to be honest, if you start reading Matthew, you're like, he's trying to be nice. Like, I don't know if you got that coworker, that friend, maybe that family member where you're trying your best. And then finally they're just not hearing it. And so then maybe you go off like Jesus does in this. And you say, you hopeless, you religion scholars and Pharisees, frauds. You buff the surface of your cups and bowls so they sparkle in the sun, while the insides are maggoty with your greed and gluttony. Stupid Pharisee. Scour the insides, and then the gleaming surface will mean something. You're hopeless, you religion scholars and Pharisees, frauds. You're like manicured grave plots, grass clipped and flowers bright, but 6 feet down, it's all rotting bones and worm-eating flesh. People look at you and think you're saints, but beneath the skin, you're total frauds. I like this part of Jesus of just really coming at it straight. Okay? And some people read this as Jesus yelling, but maybe read this a little bit, potentially. We don't get the description of how he reads. So understand you're getting my perspective here. I don't know. But I think most of us, when we are disciplined, we've only heard it through yelling. And so whenever we hear Jesus or God disciplining people, we hear his rage, not his love. And in this you go, oh, these are some really harsh words, but sometimes harsh words need to be said for the wake-up call to be heard. I remember at one point I wasn't doing very well, and I dove into an eating disorder because I just felt so cracked and broken. And there was a point in which my wife looked at me and said, I would rather have a fat husband than no husband. But where we're heading is no husband. Wake-up call. I didn't like it. That wasn't nice. We talked a message previously about that already this year. I want to encourage you to go back to that. But this is the tension that we're feeling right here. Is that we know exactly what this is. So Jesus compares them to the eggs that they're living, and even all of this. It looks completely perfect. And he said, but because you've kept this so pristine, that whenever the time comes to show something, it's hollow and broken. And the moment in which life is inevitably going to crack, there's nothing inside of you. And this is the crisis. Because many of us feel broken. But then a lot of us feel empty. I think God has a word that would help change us, that when life breaks us, that's not the end. You see, I'm worried that sometimes we read the nursery rhymes and the children's stories, and what we get out of the lesson of Humpty Dumpty is don't break. Because once you're broken, you can never be put back together again. Wow. It feels incomplete, right? Yeah. It feels like when you learn a rhyme, but then because you, I don't know, lived in Minnesota, you didn't hear the rest of it, but then you move somewhere and you're like, what? Wait, there's a second part to this? I've only jump roped to this one section. You're telling me there's two? Like, okay, well, I guess I got to learn some things. Like, but this is, like, these things feel incomplete. So to avoid the breaking, we just try to take control. And so now we live life not just trying to be perfect, but so sensitive to the world around us. There's people that you've learned to be introverted because whenever you were out in the exposed world, it felt like you were breaking. And can I ask, like, what's the substance inside that would help you, that would secure you, that would tell you that no matter what was breaking you, that you would be put back together again? But this is not the message that we hear, but it is the message that God wants to bring to us. Often what we find is that We lose control trying to take control. I don't know if you've ever felt that before, but if I handed you this frozen egg and told you to grip it as hard as you can, you would find it slipping out and going and making a bigger mess. And I see this tension. I see this tension in myself so many times that if I just do this and I do this and I do this, then it will work. Right now, we're trying to figure out, like, how do we communicate our schedule and our plans and all this stuff. And guys, I'm telling you, like, between Natalie and I, we cover a lot of, like, strengths and weaknesses of what's supposed to happen. And we still have not figured out the perfect communication model of schedules. Okay? Has anybody faced that before? Like, where you're just like, I put it on the calendar. Why are you not looking at the calendar? We agreed the calendar is the rule. That is what we're supposed to do. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. Somehow the calendar app uninstalled from my phone, which has never happened before. Like you're like, I just don't know where it went. Like, you know where it went. You just didn't want to keep getting calendar alerts. That's where it went. Like. Or I just didn't want to pay attention. I didn't want to, come on, it's just like we feel this, and it's because, like, I just don't know how to handle all this stuff. But in all of that, there is no room for the grace, which is you can plan all you want, and life will still happen. And like planning events and different things like that, I've always come to the thing of, listen, we can plan, but I'm planning for 80 to 75% to go the way I'm hoping to. And that's not like a defeatist mentality. That is, listen, we're going to plan. And if everything goes to plan, hey, like, great. But if it doesn't, it's going to be okay. It doesn't mean I'm going to like it. It doesn't mean it's going to feel good. And it's not embracing the potential failure. It's embracing that life happens. Sometimes people forget calendars. That's okay. Sometimes people show up late. That's okay. Here's the problem. When it happens consistently, that's a sign of an inward problem. It then becomes a value conversation. I set this communication tool up, you're not utilizing it, and I'm asking you to value this, and you're not valuing it. So you now need to decide, do you value this relationship? If you do, please utilize. The more you utilize it, the more grace I can have. Come on, this is partnership within this. Can you do that to yourself, by the way? You should. You can. But will you? Amen. Come on. That's the world that we're trying to move. Because it turns out, here's the reality that all of us know, none of us want to acknowledge because it sucks. But the reality is that grace we need is found when we break. We live in a world that this is just going to happen. And what you can do, the work of a follower of Jesus, is live in the grace that God gives you. And thank God for it, right? Last fall, we did like this 12-week series on grace. We defined it a very specific way, which is undeserved mercy and unreasonable forgiveness. Meaning you don't deserve his mercy, if only because he communicated perfectly and we still chose a different way. And we've taken that as punishment culture. Relax. The mercy is that he still would be attentive to you, that he would still hear your prayers, that he would then keep his message consistent no matter our inconsistencies. That's a great mercy. The unreasonable forgiveness is that we keep messing up the same thing over and over again. And unlike us within our relationships, he's never changed his opinion on how valuable you are. And the way he shows us is absolute and complete forgiveness at the drop of a hat, at the moment. And his call to us is, how quickly can you recognize the need of grace in your life? I think in the mental health crisis that's facing in this world is how much of what we face and are burdened with would be relieved because we embraced grace. Paul shows us that no matter what we do, even if we live perfectly, we still have issues in front of us. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he's preaching to a church that has previous Jewish people and people who know all the right stuff. And he gives this: I was given a gift of a handicap, of a cracked egg, to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. Satan's angels did his best to get me down. What he in fact did was push me to my knees. No danger then of walking around high and mighty. At first, I didn't think of it as a gift and begged God to remove it. 3 times I did that. And then he told me, my grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. And it doesn't just end at that positive statement. It ends with Paul saying, this is what I do with it. Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strengths moving in on my weakness. Now I take limitations in stride. And with good cheer, these limitations that cut me down to size, abuse, accidents, opposition, bad breaks, I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. Man, I love this message that what you thought disqualified you was the thing that qualified you. If only, and I love this, so many different commentators on the Bible have put this out, and maybe you've heard this before, but that God would use us despite us. And he's so excited to use you, not to abuse you, to open up this world where you get to be a light into something that is dark, and not carry the burden that if you fail, that it ruins someone else's life. But what makes it better is that you would fail, you would own up to it, you would recognize the crack and say, thank God he's given me the grace that this wasn't my end. It might be a bump in the road of our relationship. It might be the bump in the road of my career. It might be a bump in the road of what I thought life was going to look like, but it is not done. What's really cool in this opening passage where Jesus calls us to be perfect. Anybody feel the tension of that where I'm saying be broken, but Jesus says be perfect as God is perfect? Okay, you guys got that? Good. I'm glad you're getting that tension. This word perfect is probably more appropriately, it is the appropriate word, but more appropriately in changing our understanding from flawless to whole. Be whole as God is whole. And whole sometimes looks like we might be broken for a time. But we need to re-look at the story of Humpty Dumpty, where it ends on a cliffhanger and not just ends. Some of my favorite stories in the world are whenever it looks like everything's going right, but then it ends with a failure. But as a movie fan, I love knowing that every part 2 of a movie has a part 3. That there's always a story. There's always something. And even if the something isn't the win they thought in the first part of the story, but it is the win of the greater thing. And so in writing this message, I kept asking myself, where are all the characters in this? We got Humpty, right? We got horses, and we got king's men. But there's a 4th character that's implied, but never shows up. And that's the king. If there's king's horses and king's men, then, and they're specifically named in that way, but where's the king? So I rewrote Humpty Dumpty. I wrote a second part that you got to learn how to jump rope too. See, I want to present to you today as we wrap up the message, and James, you can come forward and close us out. Simply, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, and Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. But then came the king to the shells on the floor, and the servants cried out, "Lord, Humpty's no more." The servants saw pieces, but the king saw a soul, for a soul was all he needed to make Humpty whole. Turns out God doesn't need flawless. He just needs me. And he doesn't need me because he's weak without me. He needs me because he wants me. Maybe your brokenness is, I don't feel like anybody wants me or needs me. Maybe your brokenness is that has been the history of your life from childhood to now. And you've tried relationship after relationship in order to feel needed and wanted, and where has it gotten you? How about this? Maybe you had a life that just feels like it's all trials and no joys. And so you manufacture joys that can help stimulate your brain and put you in places that you always wish you could, but then inevitably, because of how these things work, the stimulant fades, or it didn't get the place that you originally got it, and they call this chasing the dragon. And you keep going more and more and more until you find yourself, I'm never in a place of not chasing and never just being. Like Pastor Natalie said last week in the closing, that maybe you found so much of who you are in what you do for other people that you stopped looking and taking care of yourself. That the only time anyone acknowledged your presence is whenever you help them or serve them. And you did that not because it was wrong to help them or serve them, but because you would hope that someday someone would do that for you. But in a world full of cracks and brokenness and eggs we want to compare ourselves to, we just feel like empty Humpty Dumptys. We're too hard on the inside that when life cracks us, we'll still put together. You see, God doesn't want a false me. He wants me. When I'm broken and all the rest of the world tries their best to make me whole, he comes to my side and says, you are enough. Would you guys stand with me? Today I want to sing this song just with some perspective, some hope, that if this week, come on, somebody, this week, we talk about it every week, but if this week you just committed that this was true, even if you don't completely believe it yet, you just tried it. Come on, you're willing to try Tony Robbins. Can you try the Bible one time? Please, like, you'll listen to a TikToker and an Instagram person like, well, here's the 5 tricks to make your parenting better. How about try God? It turns out you may not be a bad parent, you just need peace. And you're not going to get that from your kid. That's not what they're there to do. You'll let some relationship expert tell you how you're right and all the men and women in your life are wrong, how this political party and how this ideal set and this culture and all blah, blah, blah. You can't control anything else but you. And today, I fully believe this, like any other day, God wants to help make you whole. Worship team, let's sing.